Hello everyone, my name is Parnali Dharia. I'm a woman international master and I'm rated 2243. I started my chess journey at the age of 9 and since then it has been a great journey with a lot of different experiences which I would like to share. And today let's start with basic development and improving of pieces. Am I audible? Can someone message and tell me if I'm audible? Guys, am I audible? Okay, so today I am going to show you one of my favorite games, and you can learn how you should develop your pieces and what happens when you don't develop your pieces, and how you should punish your opponent when he forgets about his development. So I'm going to show you a game which I played against Cupid Lovro. He is a FIDE master and he was rated around 2300. So let's begin with the game. So he played e4, I played e5, then he played nf3 to attack this pawn, and then I played nc6. I protected it. There is a general rule in chess that you have to develop your knights before your bishops because knights are considered short range piece. So if I have a knight on the king side, it will take me a lot of time to get the knight to the queen side. So while as the bishop, it can be here on f8 or it can be on its original position and be active. So that's why you should develop knights before bishops. That is the chronology you should follow. He played bishop c4 here. He wants to castle, and that's why he's developing his pieces very quickly. Knight f6. Again, knights comes before bishop. And here he played knight g5. The other options here are something like d3 or just castles, knight c3. All of these are well-known theory. And now he played knight g5. So he's planning to attack this with the knight here and with the bishop. So there are three ways in which you can prevent an attack. One is you protect the pawn that is being attacked or the piece. Secondly, it can be either you can capture this bishop or the knight. So you capture the piece that is attacking your pawn or the piece. Or the third way is you can block it. So I played d5, which is again opening theory. He captured e into d5, and now knight into d5 is a mistake, and he can just play knight into f7, king into f7, queen f3, and king e6. So in this position, white will soon recover his lost piece, and my king will be stuck in the center without any protection. So that is why I didn't play knight into d5, and I play knight a5 instead, which is also opening theory. Bishop b5 check. And here normally I play c6, and then this is opening theory again, but I wanted to surprise him, and that's why I played bishop d7. So I could understand the look on his face was very surprised and he wasn't expecting this. And this round was when I had two rounds. So this was the evening round and he didn't have much time to prepare. So he was very confused. So he played queen e2, which is not a bad move. He could play bishop into d7. I played bishop d6 in order to protect this. If I had captured this, it would be bad because he can just capture. And if I play c6, I'm sure to lose a pawn, whether I capture with the knight or the pawn. If I capture with the pawn, he can just play queen e5 and he wins a pawn, another pawn. So I played bishop d6. Now he played knight c3. Finally, he develops the knight. And now I played c6. So c6 is like sacrificing a pawn for activity and for some initiative. Then he took the pawn. And now I have three ways to capture. What do you think, by which piece should I capture here? You can write in the chat. Okay, so I captured with the knight. Yes, it is very much possible to capture with the pawn. Just that there is a rule that the lesser pawn islands you have, it's better for you. So right now it's like I have 1, 2, and 3 pawn islands. So, and he has just 2 pawn islands. And another thing is that I have already sacrificed a pawn, so I didn't want that to happen. And that's the reason I captured with the knight, because this knight is not doing anything. Again, we come back to the concept of improving pieces. So the knight on a5 was not doing much. As you can see, the knight here just controls like 3 squares, 4 squares, but one is with my own pawn. Oops, I'm so sorry. So it's not doing much here. And the bishop is well placed. So I played knight c6, because anyways I'll have to get the knight in the center later on. There's one thing you should always remember, that center is like the Balkans of the chessboard. So all the action takes place in the center, and it is the main battlefield where, you know, if you have a lot of army in the center, you can always decide where you want to play, whether it can be the king side or the queen side. So I play knight into c6. He played knight e4, which is a bad move, I think, because he should have played something like d3 here, developing his bishop. And again he moves his knight. So now you can see he is going to lose a few moves that he has made. 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 2, while as I just played one move and then this move. So I am going to get 2 moves extra than him. So I won 2 moves. So he no longer has the advantage of being white. Then he captured. And now here I can play bishop c7. It's possible because I am protecting the e5 pawn, so that if later on he captures here, this pawn is defended. But again, in this variation he can play knight c5. So I didn't want that. Sorry. So I played bishop e7, making sure his knight has no square to go. And now he played c3. So c3 is a bad move. Again, d4 is not really possible, but I think he must be wondering if at any later point he could play d4 or b4, or maybe he just wanted to prevent knight d4. So he played c3, and I think he could have played b3, because this bishop would have been great on this diagonal. Or if not b3, then d3, developing the bishop again. But he played c3, and now with c3 he is again making it difficult for himself, because even after b3 he can go bishop b2, but he'll again have to play c4, and then the bishop will take longer than usual to be active. So c3 is a bad move according to me. And then I castled. Oh, so sorry, I played f5 first, and he played knight g3. I drove off his knight from the center. Whenever you get a chance, you should always do that, because knight in the center is very strong. And now I castled, and now he castled again. So here you must be wondering if I can capture here and he'll get a pawn. But what do you think should I play here? You can chat. Yes, you're absolutely right, Advait. I'll capture g2, and if he plays something like this, I can play bishop d6. He can give a check, and then king h8. And now the threat here is rook e1, rook e8, and pinning the queen. So he can't capture this, otherwise I'll win the queen. So he castled, and now he is definitely threatening to play bishop into c6. And if I capture, then he can definitely capture on e5. So that's the reason I played queen c7, in order to protect this pawn. And now he played d3. So finally he understood that he should move the pawn. And now the problem with this pawn is that it's a weak pawn, because I can always play rook d8, queen d6 and try to attack this pawn, and it can no longer be supported by another pawn. That is why it is a weak pawn. I played rook a e8. This is a deep move, because I could have played, and I probably should have played rook a d8, but there is a rule in chess that if you can see that the queen is on the same file, then you can play rook e8, because you are threatening the queen in a way. And now by playing this, I am preventing him from playing something like d4 later on in the game. So if he plays d4, then I can just capture and then move this bishop, giving a discovered attack on the queen. So that is the reason I played rook a e8. Another idea here is to play e4 later on, not right now. I'm so sorry. Okay, he played bishop c4, but my idea was to play something like e4, and if he captures, then I can play f4. So for instance, a3, just a random move. Then I can play this, takes, and now f4. So if he plays knight f5, then I can capture, and again, you can see the benefit of this rook. I can always give discovered attack. Maybe I can capture this too right now, but this is easier. This is what I had calculated in the game, something along these lines. So he played bishop c4 check, and I played king h8. I think bishop c4 was wrong here, because anyways I was going to play king h8, and I wanted to keep my king safe on h8, but he just forced me to do it, and that's the reason I think it's wrong. So king h8, and he played queen h5. So queen h5, and you must be wondering, his all pieces are coming towards my king and I might get mated, but that's not the case, because I have the choice now. And what do you think should I play? Like, you can suggest a move here. Should I get rid of the queen? Should I play g6 or h6? What should I play? Or something like knight a5. Yeah, you're right. I should play g6, because this queen can cause problems later on in the game, and he can't play queen h6 because the queen is getting trapped. Can you find a combination by which his queen will be trapped? Am I audible to you guys? You can take your time and try to find a way in which the queen is getting trapped. Okay, so here I played f4, and now he can play knight e4 and then rook f5. So now the queen can be trapped like this, and it has nowhere to go. So that's the reason I played g6, because this was a small trap. Obviously he won't fall for it because he's a FIDE master. And he played queen d1. Later, after this game, we analyzed the game, and he said that he was wondering if he could play something like queen e2, but playing queen e2 would mean he is admitting the mistake that he's made, because his queen was originally on e2. He played queen h5, and now again he is playing queen e2. So that's the reason he didn't play queen e2. And psychologically, that is already a one position for me, because if he plays queen e2, he's admitting his mistake. So later on in the game, he will have this psychology that, I've made a mistake, and he will be in that sort of psychology where he will think that something has already gone wrong, and he will continue to play wrong moves. So he played queen d1, and now I wanted to get rid of this threat. So what do you think should I play? There are many moves possible. What do you think should I play here? I'll give you options. One is to play f4, one is g5, and one is king g7. Okay, Manan, you said f4. f4 is slightly bad because now you're giving the knight a very strong square in the center. You can never drive it off with another pawn. So you're giving him a sort of outpost, and that's the reason f4 is wrong. Obviously, you can have a pawn roller with something like g5 and f3 later on, but I think at the moment king g7 is correct because you're making sure this is impossible. I'm so sorry. Okay, so he played bishop d2 here, and then I played rook d8. You might be wondering, I am also moving two pieces, two moves with the same piece. So what do you think now what should do? Again, I'm following the same principle of the queen being on the file and then rook mysteriously attacking it. So what do you think? Where should white move his queen? The queen has already moved thrice in the game. Queen e2, queen h5, and again queen d1. So now where should the queen move? Okay, he played queen c1. Here queen c2 was also possible, but I had this sneaky move b5 where if he plays bishop into b5, I can play knight d4, and then there's a fork here. So that was my sneaky plan, and he played queen c1. And now Manan, I played your move f4. You might be wondering, I gave reason of he being able to play something like knight e4, but after this I play bishop f5, and now I'm threatening here to play something like knight a5. So he played b4 very quickly, and he took like a minute or so and just moved. He got up from his chair, my opponent, and he started moving very confidently because he think I've already blundered with f4, and he thought that the knight on e4 is very strong. But I would like you to take a minute or two, all of you guys, and try to think outside the box and try to understand what I could have played here. Can you hear me, guys? So what could I have played? And try to think outside the box because it is very unusual. Okay, so here I played knight a5. Yes. So this is a very weird move because he just played b4 to prevent knight a5, but he didn't really prevent it. I can imagine, I hope you can imagine the shock on my opponent's face here, because when you are trying to prevent something and your opponent ends up playing the same move, it's very difficult to handle. And he was completely surprised. He was literally shocked after this. And most players seeing my game were shocked when I played knight a5. They thought that I blundered the piece, but it's not really a blunder because if he captures here, then I can play bishop into e4, d into e4, and then queen into c4, getting back the piece. And now I have a lot of plans. Here I can already, you can see I told you about the pawn islands, and you can see that he has 1, 2, 3 and 4 pawn islands, and I have just 2. Also, all of his pawns are weak, and okay, if he plays f3 in order to protect this, I can play bishop c5 check, and if he plays king h1, then queen e2, and now obviously this is under attack, and he can't play bishop e1 because queen into f1 is a mate. So something like rook d1, and this was better for me because I could play rook d3 and then rook d8, and there is a pin, and he'll probably lose this piece. So because bishop e1 again is not possible, queen f1 is a mate. I think he probably missed this and he was completely shocked. So he played bishop b5. Now what do you think should I play here? Am I audible to you guys? Okay, yes, you're correct. a6, and now he played bishop b5. So now I can capture here. Manan, you're right, rook d5 was a possibility, but I had a different plan in mind, and as we can see, rook d5 is very much possible. You're absolutely right. He can play something like c4 or a4 maybe, or maybe he can just capture right now because this is better than what happened in the game. So rook d5 could have been played, but I played a6 with a different idea. He played bishop a4, and I had thought about all of this when I played bishop f5. So you can try to think what I played here and take your time, because it's again outside the box move. So you can take your time, guys, because it's a very difficult move. It's not easy to find it. Yes, rook into d3 is very much possible, but there is something better. Manan, you're absolutely right. Knight c4 is the move that I played, and again he was very shocked. He didn't expect it, because to the player it is very difficult to accept, like if he has set up a position where he's preventing my threats and suddenly I play all of them together. So it's very difficult to accept that psychologically, and it can be very difficult to play with that mindset. He played d into c4. He took around 20 minutes and he was in utter shock, and I played bishop into e4. And now my threat here is to play this or something like f3 later on, or g5. So, and right now c4 is hanging, so he played c5. The idea of c5 is to play something like c4, then bishop c3 and queen b2, giving some threats on the diagonal. So that was his plan. Vivek, WIM means Women International Master. Yeah, f3 is possible. So here I played bishop d3 because I wanted to have a pawn roller, and the bishop was coming in between. So rook e1, and now I played e4. So you can see the power of two pawns here. Like they are completely dominating, and his bishop has no square. It is a dead piece right now, even though he played c4 to activate it. But right now, after this position, he realized that he's completely lost, and lot of things are happening, and he can't, there is no defender on the king side. So he was trying to counter attack by playing c4 and giving me threats like bishop c3, queen b2 and something on the diagonal. But I just played e3, Again, it is very similar to the idea I showed you with e4 in the opening when the knight was on g3. So you sacrifice a pawn, and then if he captures, you play f3. You don't take the pawn back. You move this pawn, and then you are completely ruining his pawn structure. All his king side is exposed, and there will be threats like bishop h4, rook f2, queen s2 is a mate, and lot of other things. Otherwise, my rating is 2243. So this is the idea, and g3 is possible, but again f2, and he'll lose his rook or even get mated very quickly, depends on what he wants to do. So he gave me a check, bishop c3. I think this is the best, and I played king g8, and now he played bishop b2. So his idea was clear. It was to play queen c3 and threaten me with queen g7 or queen h8. And now I just captured. Again, here I could have played f3, but I didn't want any complications because I had already realized that I'm better. And so I just simplified the position by playing e into f2 check. Then he took with the king. Now you can compare the kings, even though it may look to you as if my king is also weak, but you can compare the position of the rooks and the pieces. Like the bishop here is not doing much, the rook here has not moved, is not doing much. It can't even go to b1 because of the bishop. This rook is active, the queen is okay, and the bishop is strong, I must say, but the king is weak and there is no defender on the king side. But here for my king is decently safe, and my bishop is active. It is looking towards his king side, lots of threats, even this sacrifice. My queen is active, and so are my rooks. Even this bishop is doing a great job controlling the f1 square. So I was wondering in the game if I should play something like bishop c5. Yes, Vivek and Advait, I played bishop h4 in the game. I'll come back to bishop h4. Let's discuss bishop c5 first. So bishop into c5. The sacrifice was very much possible. 3 into c5, queen into c5, and king f3, the only move. So here I had planned to play something like queen h5, king f2, and now I would like you to suggest me the move that I could have played. I had seen the position till here, but I missed this move, and I thought it's probably not that clear, but this was better than what I played in the game. So you can suggest a move for black here, and it is a winning move. Yes, Advait, bishop h4 could be played. Yeah, I played f3, and now you can see the difference between the kings, and his king is completely out in the open. And king e3, and I wanted to play this, but I couldn't find f3 on board because I didn't have much time, because I was taking a lot of time too for playing knight a5, knight c4, and then e3. So I played bishop h4 check because it looked simple to me. And now king g1. Also, otherwise I would like to clear, this is a skewer. It's called a skewer and not a pin. When the pin is basically when the lower ranked piece is placed in between. Right now the king is attacked, so if the king moves, you're sure to win material, but in pin it's not the case. So that is the difference. This was a skewer, and now I played f3. So here I just wanted to mate him very quickly, and I didn't want to go and eat his material because that would mean I would have to fight another 2 hours and go in the end game. So I wanted to finish off very quickly, and that's the reason I played f3 here, but this was very much possible. Sorry, f3, and he captured g into f3. Again here g3 was not possible because I can take first, and even f2 is possible. So it's up to me. Now it's completely lost for black. His king is under attack and lot of threats. Yes, otherwise I can go to the previous win. I think you mean with f3 here. This position, bishop into e1 and queen into e1. This was possible, but I wanted to finish very quickly, so I played f3. Strategy is short. Previously, why didn't you kill the pawn? Okay, I'll cover that after finishing the game. I'll just quickly go through the game again and show it to you. And now I played f3. He captured gf3, and now rook into f3. Again, I don't want to capture his exchange, so rook into f3. And now can you spot a threat that is going to happen very quickly? There's a short mate, sort of. I'm threatening a mate. Okay, I'll let you know because it's difficult. So I'm threatening to play something like rook f2 or bishop f2, and then even bishop g3 is an idea because he cannot capture. For example, if he plays something like this, then bishop g3 is one idea. He cannot capture because something like this, and there's a mate, postmate. Queen h2. He played queen h6. He wanted to threaten a mate and counter attack, but obviously that's not the case. And I played bishop into e1 because this is protected. You can see the queen is guarding on g7, and there's no problem for my king. His pieces are still not active, and finally I chose to capture his exchange, captured with the rook. And now I played queen f7. So can you see the threat here? It's obvious. So my plan here is to play rook f1 and checkmate him very quickly. That's the reason he played queen c1, in order to defend that threat. And now you can take a minute or two to understand what I played. There are two options possible, but one of them is clearly winning on the spot. Yes, rook f1 is the threat. Okay, so I played queen f5. Here, it was very much possible to play rook f8. Yes, Manan, you're right. Rook f8 was possible. But now, he can play something like c6. And if I play this, takes, takes, takes with the queen, takes, and rook into f1. And the game will go in the end game. I didn't want that. I wanted to finish very quickly. So I didn't choose rook f8, but it was a great move and it was very much possible. I played the move queen f5, and you can take your time to figure out what the threat is. There's a forced mate. For instance, if he plays something like c6 again, there's a mate in 4 or mate in 3, you can say mate in 4. You can try to find it out. It's a forced mate. Yes, queen g4. What if I play king h1? Yeah, Advait, you're right. Queen g4, king h1. What do you play next? The forced mate now. rook f1. Bishop e4 is possible, Advait, possible, but it's not that forced. And there's a quicker mate because I can play this and it will prolong for some time. So I decided to play rook f1, which is more forced. And if he captures, then bishop e4. And now rook f3. And then bishop into f3 is a mate. So you can see the whole why it is very important to develop the pieces, because whenever you need the pieces, they have to be present in the center so you can operate accordingly on both the sides. So he played bishop e5 in order to prevent this, because this, then he can play bishop g3. That was his plan, I guess. That's why he played bishop e5. He was already lost here, and then he wanted to resign, but I think he kept playing because he thought maybe it's a good idea to just, in case I go for the end game, he can probably survive because of the two bishops. So I played rook f8 here, again renewing the threat of rook f1. And then this, again, a lot of threats here. So he played bishop g3. No, he didn't resign. I could see from his face that he wanted to resign, but he was just hesitating. And now you can find the winning move. You can take your time. It's a forced mate again. I didn't go for the endgame with rook f1. There is something much better and much quicker. Yes, you're right. So he played queen h3, and resignation is in order, because if he, okay, otherwise it was possible to play rook f1, but again I didn't want to go in endgame because queen h3 is completely winning. Queen h3, and he can't stop the threat of rook f1. So rook, right now if he plays something like c6, then rook f1, rook into f1, rook into f1, queen into f1, and then queen into f1 is a mate. So that's why he resigned. And after the game he was completely shocked, because he wasn't expecting such a play from me after the round I had played in the previous after the game that I played in the previous round. He was probably underestimating me, but I hope you like this game. This kind of shows how you can punish your opponent if he doesn't develop his pieces. What is the plus is basically check. So if you give a check, then it comes as plus. Okay, and otherwise you kind of told me to go back to f3 variation, so I'll just quickly run through it. e6, and then okay, so here you mentioned that this concept you wanted to learn. So here I could have directly played 1 second. Here I could have directly played f3, but it is not possible because of bishop h6, and I'll lose in exchange. So that's the reason I played e3 first. So I'm moving this piece, and then I play this. So this square is vacant. For instance, f3, and just hypothetically imagine this was not possible, and he can play g3, or he can just ignore, but right now f2 is not possible. There's still time to play f2, but if I play e3 first, then I'm already destroying this pawn, so this square is vacant for me, and I'm also exposing his king side. That's the reason I played e3 first, and then I played f3. So that is the reason. I hope you understood. I think I myself like Queen's Gambit. You can maybe for attack you can watch Mikhail Tal's game, and obviously Anand. You can see his game. He's a great attacker. What if I had played e4 here? Here, how can you play e4 here? Because f2. Okay, so I hope you understood, and let's move on to a few positions where I'll um, ask you some answers, and you can write down in the chat whatever you feel. There are some positional puzzles that I will be giving you. One of them, just a second. So this position is white to play, and what do you think should white play here? How can he improve his position? Which is his piece that is not doing much? I would like to tell you that development is usually in the opening when you're developing your pieces, and improving is not limited to the opening, because you keep on improving the pieces so that you keep having better position, and you take small advantages, and then eventually you win the game. So which piece is the most inactive right now in the position? Manan, you are right. The knight on e2 is out of play, and knight g3 is possible. But knight g3 is not doing much, because it can jump to f5 later on, but this bishop is controlling. So again, you will lose two tempos playing something like this, and he'll just capture it with a piece that has not even moved. So, but you're correct, the knight on e2 needs to be moved somewhere. But where? Okay, so the move here is knight c1. Um, Guys, am I audible? Just write a yes if you can hear me still. Okay, so these are the two possibilities: rook d2 and knight c1. So this was one short example about improving the rook and the knight. Now let's look at another example. A moment. So it is black to play here, and which piece should he improve or develop? Manan, is it still lagging? What should black play here? He has two options. Either he can develop the bishop, or he can move his knight. So you can try to think what white can play here, and accordingly you can decide what piece should you develop. Karthik, you are right, bishop f5 can be played, but try to understand what white wants here and what is white's plan here. Okay, so white's plan here is to play something like bishop a5, and now once this move is played, for instance if you play bishop f5, you can play bishop a5, and now this knight is a dead piece because it cannot move. And okay, you have equal amount of material, but this knight is not doing anything, it's just a dead piece. So that's the reason you should play knight c7 first. And again, as I said, knight should be developed or improved before your bishop, because knights are short range pieces and they take a lot of time to improve and to move to center. So knight c7 should be played here. And now even if you place this, then you have a strong square in the center where it cannot be driven off. White no longer has an option of playing something like c4, so it is a very strong position for the knight. Also, this bishop here is dominated with the knight, because you are taking a lot of squares that it controls. So, and also the bishop on c8 is already active. You don't have to move it, because right now this is under attack. If he plays this, then you can capture this. So bishop f5 is not bad, but right now knight c7 is a much better move conceptually. Let's look at another example. I hope I'm audible, guys, and there's no lag right now. Just write a yes if you can still hear me. Okay, so here it is white to play. What do you think should white play? It's an equal position right now, but white can definitely take some advantage of all the weakness around the squares, and he controls the c file. So what next? What should he play next? Guys, what do you think should white play here? Yes, I have watched some Raina's videos. They're funny. Yes, Manan, you're absolutely right. Nishant, you too. The idea is absolutely correct because you should double whenever you have the chance. Right now, Black's plan was to play something like this, and then quickly challenge on the c file. So that's the reason you should quickly play something like rook c5, or even rook c2 is fine. Rook c3 is also fine. So by all of these moves, you want to double the rooks and play rook c1 next and control the file, and then head towards the 7th rank. It is a well-known concept that the rooks belong to open files and also to 7th and 2nd ranks. So if he plays something like this, then you can just play rook c1 and then play rook c7, control all of his 7th rank, and it will be very difficult for Black to play. He will be very suffocated, and that's why you should, whenever you get a chance, you should take control of the open file and try to get the rook to 7th rank. Let's have a look at another example. So what should white play here? How can he improve his position? Which is the piece that is the most inactive in his position? Am I too fast, guys? Are you understanding the concepts? What should white play here? Which is the most inactive piece in the position? Yes, bishop h3. Nishant and Manan, you're absolutely right. Bishop h3 is a good move. And if you have to play bishop h3, then um, it it has to be played right now, because if you delay it, if you for instance play something like h4, then he can just play king f7, and bishop h3 is no longer that strong, because the knight can come here, and the threat that you were initially giving is not possible. So bishop h3, and now there is no possibility of playing knight e6 because it can be captured, and now you will get control of the c file, because either you will have to capture and you can capture back, so you can go to the 7th rank and control c file, or he will have to move his rook. In either of the cases, you can move your rook to c7 and have a great position. His knight is stuck because it can't move here or here. The bishop is completely controlling, and you can play something like rook a1. For instance, if he plays b6, then you can play rook a1 and win this pawn. So that's the reason you should play bishop h3, and at that very moment, not a move later. Sarthak, you're right, bishop was the most inactive piece. Okay guys, so that's about today's lecture. I am going to give you a small homework which you can answer them later on in the next stream. I'll be giving the solutions in the next stream. Just a moment. It's a fun position, and it is an illegal position, but you can try to solve it. Just a moment guys. Okay, so it's white to play, and what should white play here? And it's a very comical position because whatever he plays, it can lead to two results, obviously, draw or win. And only whatever you do, you can never lose with white in such a position. And it's an illegal position, but you can try to find out what should white play here. Obviously this is the move, but what should you promote your pawn to? And I'll be continuing this in the next lecture. So I hope you liked the lecture today, and I'm looking forward to more such lectures. Good luck, stay safe guys, and yeah, it's a stalemate, Sarthak. You're right, you're on the right track. And good luck guys, stay safe, take care.